Hello, can you hear me well? Can you please confirm that you can hear me well? All right, good. So we still have got 1 minute before we start so that other participants might join us, and maybe I might answer some of your questions. Speaking about the certificates, actually, sir, there will be no certificates for this webinar, while you will get a video recording of this webinar tomorrow. Well, actually, sir, if you want to ask any questions, you may find a special section which is called questions right at the top on the black panel. I see 2 questions there, and speaking about the structure of the presentation, we are going to speak about the trends first, and then I will leave around maybe 50 minutes to answer your questions. All right? Okay, so it's 3 o'clock sharp, and I think it's high time to start. My name is Marina Kladovar, and I'm a teacherpreneur, a teacher, and a teacher trainer. And today I'm going to talk about trends in teaching English and education, because it's very important to keep in mind, because the world is changing constantly, and we as English teachers, being a model for our learners, have to keep up to date with the latest trends and to implement them in our teaching practice. Actually, yes, we are about to start. I have just introduced myself. Actually, there are questions there already. I'm not going to answer them right now, just because it will distract me from my presentations. Can you just confirm that you cannot hear me? I hear you quite well. Okay. So if somebody has got a problem, try to reload or try to quit and then sign in again. Maybe there is some issue, or check the volume of your laptop. Maybe there is you have just muted your laptop. Okay, good. Actually, so how I'm going to structure my presentation. I will talk about 11 trends, and I will tell you some ideas about practical implications for our English lessons. Basically, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and you're welcome to participate in the chat when I ask you questions. If you have other questions, we will leave again 15 minutes at the end of my presentation. Okay? So, there are some people who cannot hear. Well, actually, I don't know the reason why you cannot hear. So, most of the people can hear me. So, if you cannot hear me, please, quit the platform and then enter again. And the second option is try to check your volume. Maybe there is an issue with that. Okay, so we have got a moderator, so she can just help you. If you don't mind, so I'm just a presenter and I'd rather speak about the trends. Okay? All right. So actually, I want to start with a question. So when we speak about trends, we often speak about some movement. And a trend actually is a general direction of something which is developing and changing. Some of you are quite experienced teachers, while others are not really. What comes to your mind when you hear the word or the phrase trends in teaching English? Can you write any trends which you see, or in other words, can you write any changes which are happening right now in our teaching context? Communicative approach. Well, communicative approach basically was in 1980s, not quite new. New methods, online teaching, okay, what else? More Skype classes, that is more online. Teaching face-to-face via Skype, interactive techniques, okay. When you speak about new methods, can you be more precise? Cognitive community, what does it mean, cognitive community? What does it mean, what do you mean by new methods and approach? Remote teaching, cooperative learning. Basically, it's not called cooperative learning, it's called collaborative learning. But you're right. Metacognition, wow. Blending of technology and teaching, student-centered teaching. Free YouTube lessons, okay. Creating personal learning tracks. Powerful internet resources for teaching, right. And maybe 3 more. And here you've run out of ideas. Good, so basically you have mentioned quite a lot of ideas, and most of them of course relate to teaching, to teaching methods. But during my presentation I'm gonna talk about different aspects, because when we speak about trends, we often speak about the shift in different areas. A shift, for example, in the teacher's role, a shift in the content, in the assessment, in different tools, in different methods, in different approaches as well. Ta-da! We have got 3 more points, which are student-centered teaching, multiple intelligence. Okay, 2 points. Good. So let's start with the first trend. The first trend is early start. Actually, in practice, it means that the age of children who come to you, who want to learn English, or whose parents want their kids to learn English, is getting much younger. For example, the youngest children I taught were about, I guess, 4.5. It's quite a challenging task, actually, to teach these kids, and you should be ready. So if you enjoy teaching kids, you'll have a lot of work, because right now a lot of centers who provide services for teaching young learners, like very young learners, starting from 3, 4. I know just some people who start teaching their kids at the age of 1, when they start learning speaking English, speaking Russian as their mother tongue. At the same time, they teach them speaking English. So the child is exposed to a lot of English, and, so they are getting it, they are getting the language just via their mothers, parents, and so on. Yes, Alexei, actually, sir, I'm going to speak about the trends, and maybe some of the trends will be quite obvious. But, sir, this is a trend which is, I would say, which is going on, which has been going on for the last maybe 3 years. But if you look at it closer, so now the age is about 1 year, 1.5 years. So you should also keep it in mind. So I'm not working with kids a lot, so this is not that important for me. But if I were to start a new business, I would definitely look at this point, because, sir, this is a really good niche. The second point is about e-learning and mobile learning. So can you tell me about the difference? Can you tell me the difference between e-learning and m-learning? What's the difference between e-learning and m-learning? Okay, yeah, the tool is different. That is, mobile learning is all about the mobile devices. So e-learning is basically something bigger than mobile learning, because when we speak about e-learning, we may use our laptops, about other devices, for example, interactive whiteboards, educational platforms, and so on and so forth. While mobile learning is all about mobile devices. More and more technologies actually are getting into our classroom, and for you this is a great chance to personalize the learning, to make it more engaging and interactive. For example, yes, using the internet, computer, mobile at the lessons. For example, so when we speak about e-learning, so people actually, you can suggest your students, for example, some courses on Khan Academy or, for example, Coursera or Udemy. So, or you may suggest them some online games from British Council or some other online games where they play and learn English. And speaking about mobile learning, we usually have more opportunities in our class if it is an offline class. And many teachers argue the use of mobiles at their lesson, because when students just get to their mobiles, they just forget and they do not do the task, but they do something different. But you know, so there are many different ways how you can use mobile learning. For example, I don't know, I really like, for example, video dictations with my students. When I record a video with me and I send to my students, for example, 1-minute video telling about something, my last weekend, I don't know, so the weather in Moscow or something else. And I ask them to listen to it at home, and basically, so they, for example, they decode all the text and then send it back to me. So this is, you know, just one of the activity. So some other activities, it's all, of course, about the pictures. When you ask them to describe something, for example, to show the picture and to describe their last weekend, or when you ask your students to bring their favorite song and then you can work with these, or I don't know, so whatever. So what and how do you use mobiles or other devices like in your lessons? While you're just typing, I will just comment some of the options. So, and learning also allows you to learn while being away from home. Agree, yes. Padlet. Okay, so Yelena, Quizlet. Okay, so you're naming some applications. Good. Okay, so speaking about just my applications, which I really like, they are also Quizlet. They are also a word by Skyeng. They are also, for example, some resources like Tube Quizlet, which allows you to work on decoding skills, or, for example, lyrics trainings when students listen to their favorite songs and do something. Yes, record student speech, e-games, yes, okay. Doing some collaborative learning, for example, when your students have a block with other students, for example, TED Talks, okay. All right. Speaking about elementary students, you know, so when we speak about, like, a good point about e-learning and mobile learning is that you have got a real access to authentic materials. And even with elementary students, you might use authentic materials. The point is that we know as teachers of English that when we take some authentic material, we grade the task, but not the authentic material. Because there are some, like, how would you say, like semi-authentic, that is specially designed for ELT lessons materials, and there are also some, you know, some authentic materials like talk. You are saying that there is no elementary TED Talks, of course, but if you look at different speakers, for example, a speaker from Poland will be, for example, much easier to listen to than, for example, a speaker from America. And actually, recently there has been a book published by National Geographic, which is called Keynote. I'd really recommend you to have a look at it. Like, it's called Keynote by National Geographic. And now, so they are actually working on the book based on TED Talks for elementary students. So that's why they just grade the task, and they scaffold the students so that all of them could, listen and do some task. Actually, speaking about foreign accents, so that of course you may argue with everything what I'm saying, but my point is that, for example, you may always find something suitable for your students. And this is my point. And the second point I'm making is that apart from finding something suitable for your students, for example, before, so it's just about methodology. It's not actually, it's outside, it's out of the scale from the lesson, but from our session. But, you scaffold, for example, based on the student schemata, you take everything out, you pull everything out of them, what they know about the topic, you help them, you scaffold them, and then your students are able to cope with any task, of course, if it is relatively designed for the level. Okay, so can you just, if you could write just your questions in the question session, I will just type everything at the end, because now it's a bit distracting. We're going to talk about the applications. I'll name all the applications which I name, and National Geographic book. Okay, good. The next trend we're going to talk about is we do not scaffold material, we scaffold our students. Okay? So a very close point to the previous one, that is e-learning and mobile learning, is two types of learning. They are called blended learning, and one variation of blended learning is a flipped education. Have you ever heard of these notions? Yes, no? Okay, good. So basically, I'm sorry, not good with technologies. Okay, blended learning is a combination, a mixture of traditional learning and online learning. It's, it's getting more popular right now because actually it helps you to make learning more engagement and more task-oriented. For example, you might give your students something for their homework based on their interests. For example, individualized homework like resources or something. While at the lesson, for example, you do something and you ask your students to collaborate with each other. For example, you ask them to work in pairs, to discuss something, to do some project work. While at home, they do something at their own pace. They do something which is interesting for them, and so you actually blend their traditional learning with online learning. A variation of this blended learning is a flipped classroom. If you look at the picture, can you guess what flipped classroom or flipped education is? Just based on the pictures, or maybe based on your just knowledge, you know what the word flip is. Upside down, non-traditional. Okay. Students become teachers, everything from head to toes, vice versa, switching roles. Okay. Basically, flipped education is a type of education when you flipped the processes. For example, if previously we at the lesson we gave students some materials, we practiced something and did more and gave them more practice for their homework. Now, so many teachers tend to flip their classroom, which means they give the students to do something for their homework. For example, I often ask my students, for example, to read some grammar points or to learn the vocabulary first, and then when they come to the lesson, I basically don't need to teach them that material, I just start with questions, whether they have any questions, problems or not, and then I actually can move to more, more productive activities. I mean, maybe semi-productive when I give them something with, with some tips, hints, and then I have more time for actual practice and production during the lesson. Of course, there are some disadvantages because some of you students may not do something and then others have done, and so you might have kind of a mess. But, so if you have defined rules for your classroom or if you teach individual lessons, I think this might be an interesting approach, at least to experiment. And now technologies allow us to do everything, to use this approach in our practice. For example, there are many resources like Fluent2 or Edmodo, where you actually give your students the task. They then upload their tasks to the platform, and you could see the results. For example, how many mistakes they have made, where they have made the mistakes. You may check their homework, for example, speaking or writing, and then give them the feedback in the same electronic form. So, so students may be overwhelmed with the material. Yes, but again, you are a teacher, you are a guide. You are the main decision maker. If you know that your students will be overwhelmed by this big amount of material, don't give them that too much. Maybe you may try with 1 or 2 things, or or you may just ask them, for example, to write a story or to ask somebody, to interview somebody, and then just share it with other, for example, students online, and other students might comment that, for example, based on the content, on the language, whatever. I would disagree that it works only with upper levels. I have got my beginner levels who work pretty well with that. I just find appropriate resources, and so they do not do it always. I mean, sometimes they just text me on the eve that, sorry, Marina, I'm too busy, I have no time. Fine, and I'm ready. So we have got some agreement that if they haven't done it, okay, they just text me. If they have done it, that's fine. I'm just coming to the lesson and we do something. Okay. Do you have any more questions here about the flipped education? Because we still have got 7 trends to discuss. Okay, good. The next trend, which is, again, you might say quite obvious, is gamification and edutainment. Do you know the word edutainment? Okay, what does it remind you? What words does it consist of? Yes, please, guess. Entertainment and education. Bingo. Education and entertainment goes together and they make the word edutainment. Yes, what does it mean actually in practice? So now our students prefer to have some kind of fun. They prefer to have fun, games at the lesson, and so they do not like sitting and doing some boring grammar exercises or whatever. That's why we as teachers have to create not only games, no, sir. We have to give them opportunity. For example, you may ask them, okay, let's go to the cinema, watch a film, and then discuss. Why not? Or you may just, for example, I myself organized a tour for my students with windsurfing, when we half a day learned English and half of the day we windsurfed together. Sir, it was quite interesting, and I've done it a couple of times. Yeah, the students love it. Or, sir, it can be something like cooking and English, or yoga and English trips, or so just going to the art gallery in English, whatever. When you actually take your students to real life situations and actually you just have fun and they have fun and everybody's happy. speaking about gamification, it's not only about games. Actually, if you know what gamification is, it's about gamifying the process. Not only by games, but you know, so you may use some badges, you may use some scores, leaderboards, whatever. And you know, for example, one of the experts in gamification actually is Елена Пересада, and she gamifies the process a lot. She tries to think of some different ways how she can engage her students. For example, oh, I just forgot how it's called. For example, when they learned different irregular verbs with her teens, what she did were different things like rap, learning irregular verbs, and then she has a special game where she drew flies, and a student, so for example you say fly, and they have to catch the fly, which showed, for example, the form flew or flown, depending on what you have asked. So you may just read more about gamification, because now we are talking about gamification not only in teaching but in our life. For example, when when Uber or when Sberbank or Tinkoff, they gamify the processes, the interaction with their audience. For example, when Nike shows you how many miles you have run, so when is your best or longest run, whatever. So it's all about the gamification. No, I'm not saying the word sir, I'm saying the word so. Sorry, this is just the feature of my pronunciation. Okay, trend number 5 is also about the what we teach. And so it's all about the 21st century skills. It concerns not only children, but adults as well. That is, we focus our teaching not only on the language itself, but also on different competencies. For example, we have to teach them to think critically, to plan their time, to collaborate with other people. We have to cultivate some features of character in them. For example, curiosity, or flexibility maybe, or just entrepreneurial mindset. And every time when you're in the class, especially when you work with teenagers or with children, so ask yourself, how do I work with these 21st century skills? How much do I know about this? For example, I always focus on digital literacy. That is when my students try to find something when my younger students try to find something in the internet, or when we are typing a lot, because now, so this is one of the essential skills which the students should have. Yeah. Don't forget to focus on the 21st century skills. And it's not something big. It's like maybe what you do in your classroom, but now, so there is more focus like on making a presentation, critical thinking, analysis, contrast and comparative. Yeah, like it's not financial skills, it's like financial literacy, we usually call it. Yeah, and if you look at the picture, it's like in the purple section. The next point is about learner-centeredness and autonomy. If previously we taught students by the books, and we spoke about what we need to teach, for example, today's lesson is about present perfect and so on and so forth. Now we actually make the lessons more learner-centered, and our task as teachers is to make them more autonomous. So more autonomous means to make them more independent. How does it work in practice? So first of all, it's all about giving your students the voice to choose. For example, you may ask your students, what kind of homework do you want to get? What kind of things you like or would like to talk about at the lesson? Or what type of activities do you like? Which type of activities do you not like? What resources you like, which not? And when you give students the choice, they become more interested, more engaged, because it's all about them, not about you. And at this moment, actually, sir, it's a good opportunity for you to develop their learner autonomy. For example, I don't know, you ask, for example, of course, you can scaffold them at the beginning. For example, one of my colleagues, Lizzie Peanut, suggested an idea when you give your students, for example, let us say elementary or pre-intermediate, a list with different resources to try. For example, you may learn grammar here, for example, Ingrid. For example, you may learn and find different vocabulary in Quizlet, Words by Skyeng, or, for example, Words. And then your students try it, and actually he chooses something for himself. Maybe he likes Lingvaleo more. Fine. If he does something in his free time, it means so you have achieved your goal. You have made your learner more autonomous. When he can, maybe first of all with your guidance and directions, later he will become more independent. You know, sir. And this is again being independent, being critical. It's more about the 21st century skills. And if you look actually at all the trends which I mentioned, they are all interconnected, and it's hard for me to say what is prior, what is next. So there is no point in arguing, but all of them are connected, and you should be just aware of them and use them into the practice. Okay, the next approach is, the next point actually is about CLIL approach, which seems to be a bit buzzy. But, you know, sir, this is what actually works with students, not only with younger students, but with other people too. When you actually learn some content and at the same time you learn some language. For example, you have got, I don't know, you have got a student who wants to enter, for example, to British school, and you have to prepare him, for example, for maths, for literature, for science, whatever. And you take some books from there, and then maybe you learn the vocabulary, you learn, I don't know, some collocations, and at the same time you learn the content. That is, the student knows, for example, what a star, or for example, your student learns about astronomy, and he learns what a star is, who is an astronaut, what he does, and so on and so forth. Well, it is not actually a task-based approach, no. Content and like CLIL approach is more about the content. When you, instead of taking, I don't know, a new English file where they have got quite standard text, for example, you take a page from, I don't know, for example, you take a description of the picture, I don't know, of Van Gogh's picture for your art lesson, for your English art lesson. And then you start discussing. For example, you discuss the vocabulary, and then you discuss why and when Van Gogh painted this picture, what is behind, and then you develop critical thinking skills by asking some questions like, so can you compare this picture with his previous one, you know. So when you combine, the language is not taken from the book, but it is taken from some content, from some other subjects like mathematics, biology, science, whatever. And they're very closely connected. Well, a CLIL approach is content and language integrated learning. It's not the word content, I'm sorry. Yeah, the last word should be learning, not content. So this is when you use English as a means for something, for learning something like mathematics, I don't know, biology, science, whatever. And the very close trend to CLIL approach is about more specialized materials. For example, you might have noticed that nowadays we have got an access to different resources, different authentic texts. And now, for example, if you have a student who is a financial director, you may go just to Financial Times or New York Times or I don't know, Russia Today, and you may take some article from there, and you may adapt it. Now we have got a lot of tools which have got to design your materials. For example, I don't know if you know something like, for example, there is one resource which is called Rewardify. Actually, it helps to adapt your text for lower levels. Or there is a word like Text Inspector, which can also help you to simplify the text for lower levels. And of course, there are different software which helps you to generate different tests. For example, when you need to write, when you take a text and then you just create a couple of questions, for example, based on this text, or you may, for example, cut some video and, so just use part of the video for your students based on some grammar, based again on the students' interests. The next one, and possibly one of the most interesting one, is the eclectic approach to teaching. You know that now we have got a lot of different approaches. So many people believe that still communicative approach is kind of a dogma in our teaching, but basically it is not. And now we have got a lot of different approaches. For example, now we speak about task-based learning by Willis. For example, the main idea of this approach is when students perform a task and they use the language which they have. For example, before, I don't know, you actually, what can you do? For example, you actually can ask them, for example, to describe, you can ask your elementary students to describe what they did, for example, what they did last weekend. And so maybe they do not know past simple yet, and they will try to use the language which they have at their disposal, but they will perform a task, a communicative task, for some reason, that is, they want to share it with their students. And then you just look what they know, what they don't, and then you introduce the language with the language analysis. Or now, lexical approach is one of the favorite ones among the teachers, which was studied by Lewis, and now Hugh Deller and Andrew Walkley are continuing to develop this topic. So the main idea of which is to focus on language chunks rather than simple words, or dogma by, for example, by Scott Thornberry, when you just enter the class without any, not without any, but when you actually follow the emergent needs of your students. And for example, when you come and say, okay, how was your weekend? And then the students are telling you about it. And then you understand that, well, no, I think it's not the right time to study, for example, past perfect or whatever, but maybe it's high time to repeat, for example, to revise past continuous and past simple, and based on the emergent needs at the very moment of your lesson, you structure the lesson around it. Or what else is just quite fashionable? Or, for example, Demanding High by Scrivener and by Adrian Underhill, who believe that you need to challenge your students. So many, I can talk endlessly about different approaches in modern teaching. But the idea is that you as a teacher is the main decision maker. Therefore, you decide what is appropriate right now for these particular students. And you will be always right. I mean, not always right, of course. You will see, so what is appropriate to use for which lesson. For example, PPP approach, like presentation, practice, production. So this is quite an old approach, but it works perfectly well for, I don't know, for example, for a group of people who have no time for homework, while, for example, flipped education may work pretty well for housewives because they have got a lot of time on their hands at home and they can do a lot of different things. That's why you have to think about it. I mean, you have to look around at different approaches, and eclectic, that is, you have to use a communicative approach, you have to use TBL. Well, you know, maybe TBL is not appropriate for these students. Sometimes it may happen. So be critical yourself and, you know, be up to date with the latest approaches and trends. Agree, sir, if you have 25 classes and 3 units of tremendous with practical, forget about dogma. Yes, yes, but if you are, how to say, if you are an experienced teacher, you might get into your classroom and you go and you may just have 8 lessons of dogma. I would say that it's very difficult to have like 90 minutes of dogma, like precisely, but still, you know, sir, it's possible. Actually, I will tell you just there. Scott Thornberry is gonna talk about dogma, and he's going to present a dogma lesson, to deliver a dogma lesson next Saturday at the Skyeng conference. I'm gonna tell about it later. And the last trend, which I wanted to talk to you about, is about new technologies in the class. So it's not only about the mobiles or, you know, or just computer. So do you know what AI stand for? What does it mean VR? What does it mean AR? I would also use like speech recognition, voice recognition technology and other. Virtual reality, perfect. What about AR? Augmented reality, bravo. What does it mean AI? This is not so real actually, and I'm gonna just explain in a while. So artificial intelligence, right? Okay, good. Now, sir, you know, I'm not really good with these technologies myself. I mean, I'm using a lot of mobile learning in my classroom, but what I use in my classroom is kind of big data and artificial intelligence. What I mean by this is we use learning like now because of big data and artificial intelligence. I mean, well, artificial intelligence is like in the form it exists right now is just the analytics and big data. And for example, when you give your students some tasks, for example, on Kahoot, here you could they do a lot of activities and exercises, and after a week or after 2 weeks or whatever, you see the analytics. Okay, he's done, for example, 8 tests. He's got the average mark is 8. I don't know, so whatever you are interested in. And so based on this data, you tailor your lessons to your students' needs. Speaking about virtual reality, no, big data is when you have statistics, a lot of statistics about your student. Yes, for example, when your student has done quite a lot of tests, for example, for a month or for 2, 3, and so on, you actually look at the statistics and you understand, is he doing any progress on, is he making any, is he making any progress or not? Or, for example, you see the type of exercises where he has an issue, for example, if he's getting ready for the exam. And in this case, make progress. Thank you. Thank you, Elena. And in this case, it helps you to make a decision just what and how to do next. And, for example, previously, okay, I'm not going to argue about machine learning or big data. I can just tell you what is the practical application of big data in machine learning. I mean, so in your classroom, actually, you may use something like Kahoot or Moodle or Edmodo or just whatever tool you're using. And after some time, you have got some statistics about your learner. If previously you were talking about like, for example, how many exercises did your students do, or how many mistakes did he make? you didn't know. Now, based on the technologies, on big data, you have the opportunity to get all of this information. Okay? So if you disagree, okay. This is not the topic of our lesson, of our session today, actually. I'm speaking about augmented reality and virtual reality. So right now, there are some applications which can allow you to use augmented reality in your classroom. And one of the specialists in this area is the man called Paul Driver. You may actually Google him and see what he really does in his classrooms. I mean, his blogging and his posts are really nice, and he shows what he does. He uses some application, and for example, in his school, he works in Oxford, he does some project with the students, and augmented reality, so the students have got the application, and when they enter with their mobile and they look at the poster, which is kind of empty, they could see something behind it just because of the technology. Speaking about virtual reality, come on, sir, you know, Paul Driver. You know, so speaking about virtual reality, this is quite an expensive technology right now, and maybe still not used that much in the classroom, but I think as we are talking about the trends, maybe during the next 2-3 years, we will have something, we'll have more of it in our lessons, in our classrooms. Yes, basically, I think this is all what I wanted to say. This is Paul Driver. I didn't talk about Paul Walker. It's Paul Driver. Okay, good. Right. So here is my email. If you do have any questions, you may email to me. But now, sir, let's get back to your questions. Could you provide a list of further development materials to deepen the knowledge? I don't understand the question. What does it mean, further development material? Books to read. There should be a structure, isn't it? Oh gosh, sir. Will we talk about the tendency ESL teaching blend with technology? What mobile learning and e-learning tools do you use in Sky while you teach? RE, machine learning, etc. Type the name of New English term. Okay, so the name is Keynote by National Geographic. Now, sir, it exists for intermediate, upper, and advanced level, but they are working on lower levels, grading the tasks, scaffolding, and just finding something relevant. Okay, type the applications and authenticate. You know, so actually, so I can type just a couple of applications which I really like. They are Tube Quizard. This is an application. It's not an application. This is a website just to practice and develop decoding skills. I mean, this is not just extensive listening when you have a lot of listening, but this is based on the features of connected speech, and this is really nice. Maybe not always that user-friendly, but a really good, you know, a really good start for your students to develop listening. As it is a receptive skill, so only authentic materials are used, but the topics are different. For example, you may take some authentic audio or video, they are actual video quizzes, and you enter the word, and for example, you enter the topic, past simple, for elementary students like A1 or A2, maybe B1, and it gives you something. It gives you some idea, and then, for example, they listen to the whole video, and they have to type something like built or went or whatever, and they have to listen to it in real speech. So this is one of the points. Then, so a good one is lyrics training. Just a minute, lyrics.com. This is actually a website for your students to practice English via songs. There are 4 levels, so check it out. Then there is also, if you are talking about lower levels, you may use Elearning.org. This is a website where different accents, where people from different countries with different accents speak about some typical topics, also arranged by levels, for example, elementary, higher, just, but this is it's not actually semi-authentic, but it is created by people from all over the world with different accents. So some Americans speak there quite, just quite slowly, but still, it's nice. Okay, what else? If you want, for example, your students to practice some pronunciation and just to hear one word in the same context, you may use Youglish. You enter the word, for example, mental, and press the button search, and you see that you listen actually the word mental from YouTube Copper. That is sometimes like 50, 100, whatever, as many as you need. Okay, what else? I don't know, so just help me a bit, so just what kind of direction I shall go to, because I can speak endlessly. Well, actually, so what I would recommend you to read about trends. For your trends, I read a lot about trends, and I can just show you one of the books. It's called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's not about teaching English, but it's about trends in general, because basically there are some articles speaking about the names. Speaking about trends in TOEFL. Some people write about this or that, but there is no book just about trends. I'm gonna just, there is a person which is called Elena Peresada. So she's a specialist in gamification. Paul Driver is a specialist in augmented reality and some other stuff. Well, actually, Scott Thornberry is a person who is a dogma approach in the lesson. Then, I don't know, lexical approach, just some others. Actually, next week we are going to have a conference. Not next week, but this weekend on the 18th of March, we are going to have a conference. I'm organizing the conference, which is called Skyeng Conference. Have you heard about it? And so this is a free online event. You can participate for free in the conference, but if you want to get some videos or materials, you can buy them. So basically you will hear at the conference, you will hear about gamification, about teacherpreneurship, about dogma, lexical approach, augmented reality, tube quizzards. Well, a lot of different things. You may check out the schedule, and if you're not busy, so save the date and just come to participate. So we still have got a couple of minutes. Unfortunately, I don't know anything related to indie rock. How to use, for example, mobile learning and e-learning tools in Skyeng. Basically, I think here a good solution is flipped education. When you ask your students to, for example, to record themselves or to make a video, to record a video and send to you, I don't know, to your Skype, to your email, and then you could just build your lesson maybe just a bit of dogma style or just more learner centered, based on the emergent needs from the students. I don't know, production task. You know, like how exactly, for example, maximum. So just what you can do with learning tools. I don't know. It's more about flipped education, I guess. When you ask them, or at the lesson, you may ask your students to show the picture or to Google something at the lesson, whatever. Okay, type the application. I think we discussed. Interest in application about indie rock. No. Recommend some particular resources, programs, and apps to put it down. Well, I have discussed a couple of them. Actually, I don't know what else I can add about this. I mean, well, if you were more precise, maybe it might be a bit easier. Well, what certificates I got? I have got Delta, and at the moment I'm actually getting ready for CPE. Oh yeah. So of course, thank you for the reminder. You know, just speaking about adopting the tax, there are 2 points, 2 services. One is called Tax Inspector. I think it's taxinspector.com, but actually what you do is you insert the text and it shows you, for example, 20% of the words are C2 level. 30% of the words are upper intermediate level, for example, and then it can help you to define the level of the text. The other service is called Rewordify. You know, so I'm awful at remembering .com or whatever. I hope it's .com. If it is not, or .org possibly. So, and this is a service where you can insert the text, and you know, so it may simplify the text. Sometimes it does it pretty well. Sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't simplify everything, but still you can try. Well, speaking about the text inspector, if you go taxinspector.com, this is a paid version. If you go to like Cambridge Vocabulary, then it will be for free, because this is just paid. So just some more questions. I think I'm going to ask the last questions, like financial skills we discussed, like yoga. And speaking about my program, basically, so yes, it was a paid program for my students. So they paid for their language lessons, and they paid for the trip and for their windsurfing themselves. Speaking about yoga, you know, so this is the same principle. I know just some people who are just gathering the group, for example, of 10 people. So in the morning they do yoga. Then, for example, from 9 to 1 they have English lessons. Then, for example, they have a rest, then some yoga. Then in the evening they got some entertainment. You know, so just it's called edutainment trip. You know, so it works actually, but you need to have the people who are ready to pay. I mean, this is not really cheap, so, you know. Okay, books to read. Yeah, so actually I have just mentioned them. Okay, I think I have answered most of your questions. If you have any further questions, you can contact me here, or just, I'm actually on Facebook as well, like the same, like Marina Kladova. Oh, I haven't written my name anywhere, have I? Okay, it's actually at the bottom. Yeah, and if you want to learn about the latest trends, you may visit Skyeng conference and learn everything from different people. And you may argue about big data, like gamification, Scott Thornberry, whatever. Yeah. Okay, hope to see you at Skyeng conference. Actually, I'm gonna talk there about teacherpreneurship, which is yeah, kind of, it's not developed in Russia yet, but yeah, I'm gonna develop this topic in Russia. Okay, good. If you don't have any more questions, thank you very much for visiting. Thank you very much for your questions. They were useful. They helped me how I can structure maybe my presentation better, what else I have mentioned. I hope you have enjoyed some English as well. I mean, I challenge you to take everything in English. To text everything in English, and you've got 1 hour of listening input, which I think real good. So I wish you to have a good day. Hope to see you at Skyeng conference. Bye bye. Have a good day.